What are we doing? What are we doing? Before I jump into it, let me refresh you with what I'm building. This is a marble machine lift to bring marbles up to the top that I can use for all of my future machines. They'll enter here near the bottom, get picked up by a conveyor belt, and dropped off at the top. Once this is up and running, I can start building a ton of marble machines. So last week I got pretty far with this thing. I got this whole frame built, I got these rollers built, and I have the this kind of test rope on. So I was reassured when I did this test rope that the motor should definitely go on the bottom. Just because you can just see that there's a lot of surface area contact with the rope. So when I have the belt on here, there'll be even more friction to encourage the belt to rotate when this is going. If the belt, or if the motor was attached to this guy, it would probably just slip and it wouldn't actually turn the conveyor. The other option would be to put it up there to connect the motor to that top one. However, I don't want to put a motor up that high. It would just be kind of silly and inconvenient. The other thing I didn't mention in the last video is that the angle between these two is about 7 degrees. So when the marbles roll onto whatever holds them on the conveyor belt, because of the slight angle at this point, they'll be encouraged to stay on it as opposed to falling off. And then when they round this roller and move work their way up to the top, this is probably I don't know, it's like 45 degrees or something, so they'll definitely not want to fall in. It'll be more like a V and they'll just want to stay. And then when they get to the top, they'll flip off the end and go onto the marble machine. Do you want to keep building? Do you want to keep building? Oh, Mr. Doof. Okay. Alright, let's keep working. Now that I have the main rollers up, I can figure out the length of the conveyor belt. I used a non-stretchy rope and put tape marks at where they met up. Then I laid the rope on the ground and measured with a tape measure. It came out to 14 feet 5 inches. Unfortunately, I got a roll of neoprene that is only 14 feet, a few inches shy of what I needed. So I need to make a few changes to shorten up the lift. The first option and easiest thing to do was swap the second roller to the backside. It was worth a shot to see how much distance this bought me. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. This also changed the angle of the conveyor where the marbles enter from 7 degrees to 18 degrees. This means the marbles will definitely stay on the lift. A win-win all around. I needed to lose about 4 inches on the conveyor length, so I dropped the top roller the length of one bearing. I used the old bottom hole as the new top hole, so it stays at the right level. This fixed the problem. I will be adding a fourth roller to be used to add tension to the system. Alright, so this lift mechanism is very much a work in progress. A lot of this is figured out as I go. Test it, identify problems, and change what isn't working. I've learned a lot more about conveyors in the last week. So I've learned that these large guides won't do anything but cause more problems. I'll be removing them in the next video, but let me graze over what I did with them. I sanded the insides so they weren't so snug. Then I epoxied them to the PVC, which works really well if you ever need to attach wood and PVC. And I sanded the inside edges so they weren't so sharp. Time to throw some paint on this thing. I took it outside and used wind power to clear away any dust. Then I painted it black, using a roller and brush to get as much coverage as possible. This is the same can of black paint that I used to paint the trim on the barn doors of the workshop. I'm painting this thing black so it's fairly uniform and doesn't take away any attention from the marble machine it's feeding into. There are some spots that are difficult to paint, even with a brush, so I spritzed those areas with black spray paint. I added the flush mount end caps to the pipes, using just normal PVC glue. Then I also spray painted these black. Alright, here's my conveyor belt. This is 1/8 inch thick neoprene. It's 36 inches wide, and I need to cut out a full strip that's 14 inches wide. This stuff is easily cut with a utility blade. When I bought this, I watched the guy cut it at the store. He did a good job, but I need to make sure the ends are perfectly square. I cut off just a sliver from both ends to make sure that's the case. The way that I plan for this to work is to line the conveyor belt with rows of angle brackets. Each row will scoop a bunch of marbles and carry them up and over the top. I think that using pop rivets to secure the angle brackets to the belt will work, but before committing to the system, I tested a small section on the excess neoprene. I punched holes in the neoprene and aluminum, and just to make sure the rivet didn't get pulled through the neoprene, I used a washer to make its footprint slightly larger. The flat side goes on the back, where it'll make contact with the rollers. The rivets held really well with this method. I think this will work great long term. Now I need to take the two ends of the conveyor belt and join them together to make a loop. This is alligator lacing, and it's pretty clear how it got its name. Each lace has teeth that hammer into the top and bottom of the neoprene. I set up the first lace with the installation pin and clips that keep it straight. I lined it up with the edge of the belt, then carefully worked both sides into the belt. I followed the exact same process for the other end of the belt. When both laces were well secured, I lined them up and joined them with a long pin that runs the full length. The pin has notches in it that keep it in its place. The last thing I did was slice away the corners at the joints. I think this helps keep the corners from catching and ripping the lacing out. The paint is all dry, so now I can start installing. I put the bearings in place with washers on both sides. Next, I put on the rollers with the belt. On the inside of each bearing is a shaft collar that will keep the bar from shifting side to side. It's a little awkward getting the bar through the rollers, but after some finagling, I got it done. For now, the bars are longer than they need to be. Not to worry though, I'll clean that up later. I made a few adjustments and slowly rolled the conveyor by hand to see how it was working. Surprisingly, it was working really well already. It was pretty much in line, but again, I have decided to take off the round guides on the sides and instead crown the rollers so the tracking is automatic. I'll explain more and attempt it in the next video. I'm still confident that I'll be able to get this thing up and running soon. Okay, that's it for now. See ya.
Excuse me. Go away. Okay, go away, go away, go away. Go away, go away, go away. Go away.